The Garmin Instinct 2X. Is it 2X better? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and this is the Garmin Instinct 2X. If you're unaware of what the Garmin Instinct series is, well, it's been around for a while. This is the Garmin Instinct 2 Solar, there was the Garmin Instinct 2, and the original Garmin Instinct. And these watches were designed primarily for hikers, trekkers, and people like that. However, when Garmin launched these watches, I don't think they knew how popular they would be because a lot of people adopted the very simplistic menu system and the sort of unobtrusive user interface that the Instinct series has. And because it became so popular, Garmin has come out with yet another variant, the 2X. So what is the Garmin Instinct 2X? Well, it's basically the Garmin Instinct 2 on steroids. It's bigger, it's got more battery life, and it's got a few other unique features that are not available on the original Instinct 2. However, both of these watches at the time of filming this video are the same price, which makes the decision a little bit complicated. In this video today, I want to highlight some of the new features of the Instinct 2X and what makes it unique over the original Instinct 2. We'll also go through things like GPS accuracy and heart rate sensor accuracy of this new watch. And finally, we'll wrap it up with a conclusion on who I think this watch is for and whether or not you should upgrade to it if you already have an Instinct 2. But before we dive all the way into this video, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that is PlayBetter.com. If you're unaware of who PlayBetter is, they sell Garmin watches and Coros watches and a whole bunch of other devices, and they have free 2-day shipping and a no-hassle 60-day return policy, which makes it a really nice place to shop. Not only that, but they are real people that you can actually get on the phone with and ask questions to about your order or the devices themselves, and I've had a really good experience with them. So if you're interested in picking up the Garmin Instinct 2X or any other watch I show in this video, check out the links in the description down below because those help support this channel and they cost nothing extra to use, so you might as well use them. The first thing I want to talk about is options and pricing. The Instinct 2X comes in two versions. There's the Instinct 2X Solar, which is the one I have here. This comes in at $449 here in the USA, and it comes in 4 different colors. You can get graphite, that's the color I have here. It's sort of a gray-black color. Then there's moss, which is a more of a green-gray color. There's flame red, and there's whitestone. The other version is the Instinct 2X Tactical. Now this watch comes in at $499. It comes in 2 colors, that's black and coyote tan. And the Instinct 2X Tactical is designed for people in the military or in law enforcement or for hunters or people who engage in tactical operations. I'm not really sure who you are out there, but if you know who you are, you probably know you need this watch. I'm not going to go too deep on the tactical model because it's not really my bag, but I did want to mention it here. One thing you might have noticed as I went through those models is that every model with the Instinct 2X has solar on board, while previously on the older Instinct 2, you could pick if you wanted solar or not, and there was a price difference there. While on the new 2X, it's only solar, so just keep that in mind. Moving right along, let's dive into size and weight because the Instinct 2X is a pretty chunky watch. This watch comes in at a 50mm case diameter, and it's about 14.5 millimeters thick. And if we compare the size of the new Instinct 2X on the right side of your screen to the Instinct 2 Solar, you can see there's a substantial increase in size between these two watches. However, when flipped on their sides, you can see that the thickness actually isn't that different, but the overall diameter has grown quite a bit. When it comes to weight on the Instinct 2X, it's actually relatively light, coming in at just 67 grams, which is not bad for a watch of this size. And for a quick size comparison, I've got a few other watches on the table here. All the way on the right, we've got the new Garmin Forerunner 265. Then we've got the Garmin Epix Gen 2. Next to that, we've got the original Garmin Instinct 2 Solar. Then we've got the new Instinct 2X, and all the way on the left here, we've got the Garmin Tactix 7. The Garmin Tactix 7 is the same size as the Garmin Fenix 7X. This watch comes in at 51mm in diameter, and as you can see here, the Instinct 2X and Fenix 7X or Tactix 7 are pretty similar in size, but the Tactix 7 is a bit heavier. And for reference, my wrists are 165mm in circumference, and this is what the watch looks like. Quick interruption, if you're finding this video fun or helpful, I would really appreciate it if you went down and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel down below because it really helps me out. Okay, back to the video. Now let's go ahead and talk about the design and build quality of the Instinct 2X. Like I said, it's very similar to the Instinct 2. They basically look the same from a distance, even though they're different in size. The overall build and design and look of the watch is very similar. However, there are some subtle tweaks to the Instinct 2X. As you can see here, there's some exposed screws around the bezel of the watch, and those screws are actually metal. They're not just there for design. I think they are actually holding the watch together, but I haven't removed them to find out. I think the exposed screws do make the Instinct 2X look a little bit more premium as compared to the original Instinct 2, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's really up to you to decide. Even though the Instinct 2X is plastic, it's still military spec tested to standard 810, so that's good for water resistance and dust resistance. It's waterproof to 10 atmospheres or 100 meters, just like a Fenix 7, so you still have those bases covered. It's just made out of plastic. In terms of the physical buttons on the Instinct 2X, they're actually quite nice. They have a nice click to them, a nice feedback. You know you pressed it when you push down on it, and you can actually hear it. So the buttons are not mushy, they feel pretty high quality, and they do feel like they will last over time. Even though I've had this watch for a couple of weeks, I'm not really worried about it. The included band on the Instinct 2X is just like the included band on the Instinct 2, shocker. It's got that pre-contoured shape to it, as you can see here, so it doesn't really sit flat on a table, which is not really a big deal. But when you put it on your wrist, it's got a nice contour to it, so it kind of hugs around your wrist. Now, the nice thing about the band on the Instinct 2X is that it is user replaceable. If you look closely, there's a little pin on both sides here, and you just have to pop this pin out, remove the stock band that comes on the watch, and then you can put on any standard quick fit band from like the Garmin Fenix 7. I believe this is a 22mm band, so any standard Fenix 7 band will fit on the Instinct 2X, which is really nice. When it comes to the display on the Instinct 2X, again, very similar to the Instinct 2. However, the display did get a little bit bigger. The new Instinct 2X has a 1.1-inch monochrome MIP transflective display, while the original Instinct 2 had a 0.9-inch display, so a little under an inch on the Instinct 2 and a little over an inch on the Instinct 2X. That difference in screen real estate is very noticeable in practice. I much prefer the display on the Instinct 2X over the original Instinct 2, just because the numbers are bigger, words are more clear and easier to read at a distance. Like I said though, this is a monochrome transflective display. This is not an AMOLED display. It's not bright and vibrant. It has no colors, and it doesn't compare to something like an Apple Watch or even my Garmin Epix Gen 2 I have here. So just know that getting into this watch, it's not a bright, vibrant display, but it does the job, and it does have some benefits over an AMOLED display like power consumption and of course visibility in direct sunlight. One thing I did notice about the Instinct 2X when compared to the original Instinct 2 is that the backlight has received a pretty big upgrade. On the Instinct 2 and 2 Solar, I noticed the backlight was very washed out and blue and had low contrast, and it was kind of hard to read in the dark. But on this new Instinct 2X, it's much more crisp. The contrast is way better. It's really nice to look at. I don't know if that's just luck of the draw and I got a really good unit on the Instinct 2X and a bad one on the Instinct 2, but it is something I noticed. At 100% backlight brightness, the Instinct 2X is significantly brighter than the original Instinct 2. In terms of visibility of the Instinct 2X, it's really good. Out in direct sunlight, I've noticed this display is way easier to read, even compared to something like the Garmin Fenix or Epix watches that I have. I'd say that the monochrome display on the Instinct 2X is probably the easiest to read out of the bunch in direct sunlight. Now, over the top of that MIP display is PowerGlass. PowerGlass is a solar panel on the front of this watch. Basically, the ring around the perimeter of the watch here that's kind of red, it looks a little bit copperish, is a photovoltaic cell. However, all of the glass is also a solar panel as well. It's just not quite as efficient as that darker area around the perimeter. So the Instinct 2X claims to be 50% more efficient in terms of solar power consumption as compared to the Instinct 2 Solar, which is pretty impressive. And we'll talk about how that works out in real life when we get to the battery segment of this video. Now let's talk about arguably the most exciting feature of the Instinct 2X, and that's going to be the built-in flashlight. That's right, the Instinct 2X got the same built-in flashlight that the Garmin Fenix 7X and Tactic 7 and Enduro 2 got. That's now available on the Instinct 2X. You can access the built-in flashlight in two ways. The first way is to simply tap on the top left button twice, and that'll turn on your flashlight right there. Or you can dive into the command menu, go to the torch option here, and now you have full control over the flashlight. You can turn up the brightness, or you can turn it to a different color. In this case, it would be red. I've said it before in my review of the Garmin Fenix 7X that the flashlight on these watches is invaluable. I find myself using it all the time if I drop my car keys between the seats, or I'm looking for something behind the couch, or even if I'm running and my headlamp dies, I've got a spare flashlight on my wrist, which is super cool. When it comes to the brightness of that flashlight, it's very comparable to the Garmin Fenix 7X, the Enduro 2, and the Tactic 7. I would say the brightness of the Tactic 7 and Enduro 2 are a little bit brighter than the Instinct 2X, but when I tested them in the dark, they all looked pretty similar, and I don't think you'd be able to tell them apart in a lineup. I think they're all pretty much the same when they're at their max brightness. Another unique feature to the flashlight on the Instinct 2X is that you can set it to strobe. So if I go into the strobe menu here, I can have it strobe a simple blink, I can have a custom strobe, I can have the blitz strobe, which is kind of a burst of strobes, or I can have it set to beacon, which kind of fades on and off over time. Another use to the flashlight is that if you're in a running activity, you can actually have the flashlight strobe while you're running. So the watch will actually detect when your arm is swinging and allow the flashlight to strobe at the same cadence you're running in, which will make you more present to vehicles passing by or people are trying to see you. That additional light is a nice peace of mind. It's funny because when I first started getting watches with flashlights built into them, I thought it was going to be a gimmick, but here I am saying it's a really nice feature, and I wish my Garmin Epix Gen 2 had it, and now it's on the Instinct 2X. When it comes to the user interface on the Instinct 2X, it's again nearly identical to the original Instinct 2 and 2 Solar, so we're not going to dive too deep on what the capabilities are in terms of smartwatches and wellness features and things like that. However, the Instinct 2X did get a few unique watch faces. I've got one enabled here that has a whole bunch of information on it, and thanks to that larger display, you can squeeze a few more data fields in there, and I really like this watch face in particular. And as I scroll through the menu, you'll notice it's very similar to the Instinct 2. We've got the solar intensity to let me know how much sun I got throughout the day. I've got my estimated VO2 max, my body battery, my stress tracking, my HRV status, which was a new feature that got updated via firmware on the original Instinct 2, and on the Instinct 2X, we do have training readiness. Training readiness tries to give you an idea of how ready you are to take on more training from your previous activities and a variety of other factors. One thing to note though is that this feature is not available on the Instinct 2 and 2 Solar at the time of filming this video. I am very hopeful that Garmin will introduce a firmware update for the original Instinct 2 and 2 Solar to include training readiness, but for now, it's exclusive to the Instinct 2X, which is kind of interesting. So as you can see here, my training readiness is 68 out of 100%, which is pretty good or moderate. And if I scroll down, it'll show you all the factors that play a role into that training readiness score. The first one being sleep, then we've got recovery time, HRV status, acute load or training load, and if I dive any further into any of these widgets, it'll give me even more information. So if I dive into acute load, you can see my training load from the past 7 days. Personally, I really like the training readiness widget, and I'm really happy to see it introduced on the Instinct 2X, and like I said, I'm hopeful we get it on the Instinct 2 and 2 Solar as well. Other than training readiness though, the Instinct 2X is exactly the same as the Instinct 2. You've got all the same widgets here. So if I scroll down, I've got my training status, my sleep, my weather widget, my sunset or sunrise widget, my last sport, my step count, my heart rate throughout the day, my calendar widget, my notifications from my phone, that could be a text message or a Facebook message or a calendar event or whatever. And then we have my ABC widget for the altimeter, barometer, and compass. Scrolling down below that is my weekly mileage. And we do have music controls to control the music on my phone from my watch. Keep in mind, you're not storing music directly on the watch, it's just a remote control for your phone. And of course, on top of those pre-installed widgets on the 2X, you can download additional watch faces and apps and data fields and widgets and things from Garmin's Connect IQ store, which is kind of like an app store for Garmin. When it comes to actually going out on a run or a ride to track an activity with the Garmin Instinct 2X, you have a lot of options here. As you can see, you have all the basics from hiking, walking, running, trail running, treadmill running, virtual running, track running, but there is a new activity on the Instinct 2X for obstacle course racing. So the idea behind the obstacle course racing activity is for all you tough mudders out there who are doing things like jumping through flaming hoops or whatever. This is for you. And what you can do with this is actually mark splits in between different obstacles that you're racing through as you get to the finish line. The obstacle course activity will include the number of runs you've done on a particular course. It'll also include your run times and the number of overall obstacles in the course, along with time spent on each obstacle. You will also be able to record your distance, your pace, your cadence, and your stride length, just like if you were out on a run, but with this new activity profile. Now, personally for me, I don't do obstacle course racing, so I was unable to test this new activity, but I'm sure it's pretty cool. And if you are somebody who is hardcore into Tough Mudders or obstacle course racing, this might be the watch for you. Obstacle course racing aside, the Garmin Instinct 2X on a typical run will record your GPS track, your distance, duration, but will also record your running power from the wrist without needing an additional sensor, just like the Garmin Instinct 2 that got it in a firmware update. Out of the box, this now has running power as well. And of course, the Garmin Instinct 2X, just like the Instinct 2 and 2 Solar, is compatible with external sensors, whether that be a heart rate strap on your chest, a power meter on your bike, a running power sensor, or anything like that. It's the same across the board here. Moving right along, let's talk about battery life on the Instinct 2X because it's pretty impressive. Like I said before, the solar panel on the front of this watch is 50% more effective than on the previous model with the Instinct 2 Solar, thanks to it being much larger. So in standby mode or smartwatch mode, when you're just living your everyday life, checking the time, reading your text messages and things like that on the Instinct 2X, you can expect up to 40 days of battery life from this watch without any sunlight. So that's just 40 days without the solar function at all. However, if you do get some sunlight every day on the display, you can expect unlimited battery life on the Instinct 2X. So you'll never have to charge this watch as long as you get enough sunlight every day. So what is enough sunlight? Garmin claims 50,000 lux per day. Lux is a unit of measurement when it comes to sunlight on these watches, and I've found it's actually really easy to achieve hitting 50,000 lux on the Instinct 2X. For example, I was outside for about 3 hours the other day, and I noticed that I actually hit 92,000 lux of energy consumption with the solar panel on the Instinct 2X. I think that's really interesting because we're getting to a point with solar technology on these watches where it's actually starting to make a difference. It's not so much as a gimmick as it used to be. As long as you get sunlight every day, you'll never have to charge this watch, which I think is really cool. So you might be wondering, what about GPS battery life? When you're actually out on that run or ride, how much battery can you get out of the Instinct 2X? And that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. So the Garmin Instinct 2X is multi-band enabled, which means it can use multiple bands, multiple frequencies to acquire a GPS fix when you're going on that bike ride or run. The new multi-band chip in all of these new Garmin watches is incredibly power efficient, and because of that, we're getting really good numbers when it comes to GPS on battery life. In GPS only mode on the Instinct 2X that's not using multi-band, you can expect up to 60 hours of battery life from this watch, and that's with no solar involved. If you do get 50,000 lux of sunlight, you can get up to 145 hours. That's pretty impressive. If you bump up the accuracy and turn on all systems mode, you can get up to 40 hours of battery life without solar or 65 hours with solar. And finally, if you want the most accurate GPS tracks, you can turn on all systems plus multi-band and get up to 27 hours without solar or 36 hours with enough sunlight. On top of these standard GPS settings, you do have additional battery settings for activities like expedition mode that'll give you 60 days of battery life at a very low accuracy, and that's really for, climbing Mount Everest or something like that when you're out there for an extended period of time. For most people, you're probably going to stick to the standard GPS modes. Battery specs are great and all, but what about some real-life testing? So I took the Garmin Instinct 2X on a whole bunch of different runs, and one in particular was about an hour and a half long. And when I went on that run, I had all systems GNSS turned on and all of my other settings set to default. I started that run at 97% and I finished the run at 93%. And when I analyzed that track, it gave me an estimated battery capacity of 39.6 hours with all systems turned on, which lines up very nicely to Garmin's claims of about 40 hours in that mode. Now that we've talked about all the different GPS modes, let's talk about accuracy. Like I said, this is a multi-band enabled device, which makes it kind of the gold standard when it comes to GPS accuracy. One feature is missing from the Instinct 2X, and that's Sat IQ or Auto Select. So on the Garmin Fenix 7X or the Epix Gen 2, or even the Garmin Forerunner 265, all these watches have an automatic setting that will adjust the GPS settings depending on your needs. So if you really need better accuracy, you're next to a cliff face, and the watch is struggling to get a fix, it will identify that and automatically switch into multi-band mode to get better accuracy. Unfortunately, that feature is missing entirely from the Instinct 2X. The Instinct 2X shares the same GPS chipset found in the Garmin Fenix 7X, the Epix Gen 2, and a few other Garmin watches, and because of that, the results are very similar, which is a good thing. I've taken the Garmin Instinct 2X out on a whole bunch of different runs, while also wearing the Garmin Epix Gen 2, the Apple Watch Ultra, the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, and a few other test devices, and in most cases, the Instinct 2X was a top performer. I'm getting really good GPS accuracy on the Instinct 2X, and in some cases, it's actually beating out the more expensive Garmin Fenix 7X or $1,000 Epix Gen 2, and for some reason, I'm getting better results in some situations on the Instinct 2X. And as a note, I did most of my testing in the all systems mode, but even in that GPS only mode, I'm getting really good results with that as well, and with that mode, you'll get up to 60 hours of battery life, which is pretty cool. And like I said, the multi-band mode on this watch is pretty much overkill for most situations, unless you're in that really niche group of people that's in a city with skyscrapers, a slot canyon, a big cliff over you. If you're there, turn on multi-band, but for everybody else, I don't think you need to turn it on. Now that we've talked about GPS accuracy on the Instinct 2X, let's pivot and talk about heart rate accuracy from the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch. Just like everything else on the Instinct 2X, the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch is basically the same as the Instinct 2 or 2 Solar, but it is a little bit different. As you can see here, the Instinct 2 Solar has this kind of domed epoxy heart rate sensor, where the Instinct 2X has a plastic lip around the heart rate sensor and then sort of a glass lens over the sensor itself. Other than the exterior though, the internal guts of the heart rate sensor are identical between these two. To test the heart rate sensor on the Instinct 2X, I've taken the watch on a whole bunch of different runs while also wearing the Garmin Epix Gen 2 paired to my Garmin HRM Pro chest strap, which is an ECG sensor and really accurate, so it's a good baseline of comparison. In terms of overall accuracy, I've analyzed a bunch of different runs, and in most cases, the Instinct 2X did a pretty solid job. It wasn't 100% perfect, like there were a couple of hiccups here and there, but overall, I would say perfectly acceptable and above average in terms of my testing on this channel with multiple devices. And I did find that rather surprising because the Instinct 2X is a big watch, and typically with big watches, they allow light to leak in around them or they wobble around because they're so big and my wrists are so small. But for whatever reason, I had pretty good luck with the Instinct 2X. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, we've hit that point in the video where I want to talk about final thoughts and conclusions about the Instinct 2X. Well, first of all, I want to say, I think this is a welcome addition to the Instinct 2 lineup. Having a bigger option, just like the Garmin Fenix line has the Fenix 7X, is a nice alternative for people with bigger wrists. And on top of the size difference of the Instinct 2X, it's basically better than the Instinct 2 Solar and the same price, and it's better in just about every way, with its larger display, better backlight, more accurate GPS chipset, longer battery life, the training readiness widget, and we can't forget that super cool flashlight. I love that. Even though the Instinct 2X is better in every way, it's still not going to be right for you for some people because it is a larger watch. At 50 millimeters in diameter, the Instinct 2X is a chunky watch, and I understand a lot of people out there might be turned off by that, and they might still end up going for the Instinct 2 Solar if they're in the market for this kind of watch. But if you can handle that additional size, the Instinct 2X is kind of a no-brainer. At $449, it's not a cheap watch, but with these additional features, it's a bit better of a value than the original Instinct 2 Solar. And I gotta say, the Instinct 2X has really grown on me over the past few weeks of wearing it every day. Even though it doesn't have an AMOLED display like the Garmin Epix Gen 2 or the full mapping experience of the Fenix 7, there's something nostalgic and really simple about this watch I really enjoy. If it only had full-on topo mapping like the Fenix 7, that would really put the cherry on top, but we're not there yet. Maybe in the next version. And with that, we have reached the end of this video, and now it's the time where I want to hear from you. Drop down in the comments down below and let me know which way you're gonna go. Instinct 2X or Instinct 2 Solar, or you're just gonna go with the Garmin Fenix 7 and call it a day. Let me know in the comments down below what features sold you on it. I'd love to hear from you. All right, folks, we did it. We've made it to the end. If you're still watching, you probably enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Also, if you're interested in picking up the new Garmin Instinct 2X, the Instinct 2 Solar, the Fenix 7, or any other watch I showed in this video, check out the links in the description down below because they do help support this channel, but they cost nothing extra to you, so you might as well use them. And with that, I'm gonna go now. Okay, bye.